Hello and welcome to On in Omaha, brought to you by D1 Baseball. Mike Rooney here with my good friends Aaron Fitt, Kendall Rogers. We remain in the fighting city of Omaha, Nebraska. It is Wednesday. We are about to begin day 5. First, let's take care of business, gentlemen. So this is all brought to us by our good friends at Wilson. And for fans in Omaha, first of all, if you're a baseball fan, this is an absolute bucket list event. But if you're here, make sure you get over to the Village. And, you know, in regards to Wilson, you've got all the best baseball brands under one roof. You can get your hands on limited edition stuff, never before seen before stuff. Think about these brands: Wilson, DeMarini, Louisville Slugger, Evo Shield, all in the Omaha Village, right next to the stadium. We are in the joint right now. There is gear and swag everywhere. It is very, very good.
Runes, I kind of want to take like half of this place home with me.
Yes, that's right. I almost am taking half this place home with me. So we have done some damage to the credit card. So, gentlemen, it's Wednesday. So I thought what we could do here is let's recap last night, which was eventful, to say the least. Let's preview today, and let's just I think today's a good day to get some overview on the brackets, because we really do need to reset ourselves as we head into the rest of the tournament. So yesterday, Texas eliminates Tennessee, and then really an epic game, Virginia and Hail State. Kendall, let's start with you. What did you see in the Texas-Tennessee game?
Well, I think the biggest thing, Tennessee threatened early against Texas, but, when Texas turned that double play from Cam Williams, Silas Hardorn to first base, they got out of that big jam, that bases-loaded jam, and that was, to me, that was kind of the game. I think Tennessee kind of felt that was its moment to kind of punch and score a lot of runs. Once it didn't do that, Texas got in a groove. They went to Tanner Witt out of the bullpen, who threw 5 2/3. That was his longest outing since I think it was 3 2/3 against BYU earlier this year. He had that breaking ball working, and you kind of got a glimpse of the future with Tanner Witt. He's a guy that's probably going to be their Friday or Saturday guy next year with Pete Hansen in that rotation again. He'll probably come back next year. So you kind of got a glimpse of the future. But I thought Texas, for the most part, played really well. Trey Faltini, my guy, was really good up the middle. Him and Mitchell Daly, for me, probably the best double play combo here. They were terrific yesterday. And Texas took care of business. It was a great season for Tennessee. A lot of great memories were had by the Volunteers. I mean, I don't think anybody really expected them to be in Omaha. They were a preseason ranked team. We had them with 21, 22. But to 19, even 19. But to get to the postseason, host each round, be a national seed, and get to Omaha, they had a heck of a year.
Fitzy, so you think about, I agree with what Kendall just said there 100%. Tennessee, they continue to elevate. They continue to take the next step. Let's think about Texas for a second. What really stands out about Texas' effort yesterday?
I mean, I think Kendall hit on the big things. The defense, first of all, was dazzling.
Dazzling.
We've talked about NC State being a great defensive team. I think Texas is right there. And you're right about that double play combination. Mm-hmm. It's just been a joy to watch Trey Faltini and Mitchell Daly. And it reminds me a lot of NC State with Jose Torres and JT Jarrett in the middle. I mean, boy, these teams that are strong up the middle, it really leaps out. But like you said, they got strong play at the hot corner as well. They're good behind the plate. They're good everywhere. So the defense really has jumped out to me about Texas. And and Witt, I mean, it kind of reminds me of like Corey Knebel. When he was a true freshman. I don't know if that's a good comp, but just the impact that he had as a freshman on that pitching staff in the bullpen. I mean, it's really significant.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting you mentioned. I was talking to somebody close to the program yesterday. They said it kind of reminded them of Taylor Youngman's first year at Texas. He came out of the bullpen in a long relief for a role like that for Texas, and that's kind of what propelled him to have the career he had at UT. So keep an eye on that.
Yeah, it's so interesting too. In this format, obviously, it's ideal to win the first 2 games, but I've always believed if you're going to lose one of your first 2 games, lose the first one, because I think about Texas. There's some real momentum from that win that they're going to bring from the Tennessee win.
Yeah, the thing about Texas, they're still in pretty good shape. I mean, Pete Hansen threw out of the bullpen, but threw limited pitches a few days ago. He's going to start for them. Honestly, he's been their best starter the last month of the season. He has been. He has a really good breaking ball. He can command on the outside part of the plate. And they also have Colby Kubicek. He started for much of the year. He struggled down the stretch a little bit, but Texas is one of those teams. They can come back with Pete Kubicek and then kind of roll things back over to Ty Madden. So they're far from done in this thing. They actually match up okay.
Yeah, very, very interesting. So we've had incredible night games in this event. Yeah. Just the atmosphere in the stadium has been awesome. The games have played out. Last night, I feel like I'm still processing what happened last night. Just so many swings. So Fitzy, let me start with you. Virginia loses to Mississippi State, an incredible comeback by Hail State. What did you see in that game?
What an epic baseball game.
Yeah.
You know, maybe we throw that word around a little bit too much, but I mean, come on. We had a guy take a no-hitter into the 8th inning. He was 5 outs away from history, Griff McGarry. And not only that, by the way, we got to talk about Griff McGarry for a minute because I know they lost the game, but this was a guy who is, you know, he is electrified with the stuff since he ever showed up at Virginia. I mean, you'll see that. You saw it, 94, 97, you know, with life. He's got high spin rate. I mean, the breaking ball, the slider that he had going was better than I've ever seen it. He commanded it far better than I've ever seen it. Throwing strikes has been an issue throughout his career. I mean, he had 40 walks in 35 innings this season heading into this game with a 6+ ERA. He had not won a game this year. He was 0-5. I mean, you know, and it's nuts. It's nuts that they didn't just abandon this guy, right? I mean, like, as good as his stuff is, the coach has stuck with him. And, you know, last week they started in game 2 of a super regional, and he's great. 7 innings, 2 hits, you know, shutout. But can he do it again? You know, we still weren't sure. And he comes out here and takes a no-hitter into the 8th inning. Incredible performance, and walks away with a no decision because Mississippi State just doesn't quit. I mean, this group of players, you know, and I thought it was telling that the 3 guys who were right in the middle of it, and they were basically everybody on this roster was in the middle of it because they went deep into their bench, they went deep into their bullpen. Talk about a team win. But, you know, Rowdy Jordan, Tanner Allen, and then Josh Hatcher even with a big pinch hit. The 3 guys who are 4th-year players that are making their 3rd trips to Omaha, and they feel like this time they can win it, you know, and Tanner Allen, what can you say, guys?
Yeah, I would not recommend going slider right over the plate to Tanner Allen. But, you know, I thought the thing that stood out to me about McGarry was, like, his confidence on the mound. We were kind of talking about it in the press box, but, like, he had a swagger. He had a bounce in the step. He looked like a guy that was totally dialed in. But to think that Jack Leiter and Griff McGarry threw that well here in Omaha, and neither one is pretty incredible. But give, you know, Mississippi State a lot of credit. They were patient, and they're one of those offenses that, you know, really all year long hasn't been ultra potent. Like, they don't score 10, 12 runs a game, but what they do is they will take advantage of opportunities. And they got some opportunities late yesterday, and they got some big hits from kind of the usual suspects. And I think we talked about it yesterday morning. We talked about the fact that Tanner Allen went 0 for 4. He's not going to have 2 straight bad games, and he didn't have 2 straight bad games. Yeah,
I think there's so many storylines in this game. To me, if Tanner Allen gets a chance to impact the game, Mississippi State's winning. You know, like he is the star of stars at this thing. And I think about last night's game, Mississippi State being here for the 3rd consecutive season. It felt like that was part of last night's story. You know, that Tanner Allen and those veterans that you mentioned, Fitzy, so comfortable in the stage. You know, I also felt for Virginia, I think all these elimination games that they've played, that Virginia had a very difficult road to get here. And I think that has helped their position player group really emerge. I think their position player group's playing their best baseball of the year.
Yes.
I'm worried about their bullpen. I feel like their bullpen is worn down from a very difficult trek to get here.
And you know, we talked about it yesterday. This felt like it was going to come down to a battle of the bullpens because none of us thought McLeod was going to go very long, and he didn't. We weren't sure about McGarry. McGarry did, but still it came down to the bullpen. I mean, Mississippi State, turns out their bullpen's in better shape. You know, they were able to piece it together from the 2nd inning on with a bunch of guys. They kind of showed off that depth that they've got. Power arm guys, low slot guys. Landon Sims comes back at the end. But for Virginia, you know, I loved this bullpen 2 or 3 weeks ago when you had Blake Bales healthy, when you had Brandon Neek available. Brandon Neek struck out 16 guys 2 weeks ago over 5 2/3 innings of relief in the regional, and now he's just gone missing. I don't know. I mean, maybe something's not right with him because I don't know why you wouldn't go to Brandon Neek to face Tanner Allen in that spot. Yeah, I mean, we're talking about, you know, a premier left-handed hitter, and you're going to bring in, and we all love Stephen Schock, but you're going to bring in a sidearm righty against Tanner Allen, a guy who's going to flip a slider in there. I mean, he's not going to beat Tanner Allen with a fastball. You know, he's going to throw a slider. I hate that matchup, and nobody loves Stephen Schock more than me, but I hate that matchup. Clearly, it shows you they didn't really feel like they had anything better. But I mean, I would have even rather gone with Nate Savino there. At least you got a left-on-left matchup. I do agree with pitching to him. I know maybe you don't feel the same way. I don't want to walk Tanner Allen to put the go-ahead run on first base with 1 out, and then a gapper and you're behind. But I want to go at him with a lefty, not a sidearm righty.
Yeah, I think my 2 overarching thoughts there is, boy, the game speeds up at the end, right? You know, it's like you know, Griff McGarry is cruising, leadoff walk. Hey, Kellum Clark has a moment, right? Like this is a potential future star, and then next thing you know, you're in a real pickle with Tanner Allen looming. And, I think at the end of the day, Virginia probably just didn't have a perfect option in that bullpen. But I think what you just said, Fitzy, is fascinating. The coach in me, I still don't know what my decision would be. I don't want Tanner Allen to impact the game. I also don't want to put the game-winning run on base. Those are, it's basically I've got a bad option and a bad option is really what it boiled down to. And so, but for us, the fans, the drama was amazing.
Yes.
And so that part was really fun.
Well, I think the other thing, too, I think both these teams from a bullpen standpoint would be in a pickle no matter who lost last night. I think Mississippi State lost, all of a sudden you're turning back around in 2 days and throwing Landon Sims potentially again. So you kind of wonder with, him throwing, what was it, 40-plus pitches a few nights ago and then threw again last night. Let's say they lost. Well, then what do you do at the end of the game if you're Mississippi State in the next elimination game? So it's a big win for those guys for multiple reasons.
Yeah, and to put a bow on Mississippi State, I think they get some clarity for their pitching going forward. And not that I'm trying to take down Christian McLeod, who's been brilliant, for the first half of the year, and this last part's been tough. I think at this point, if you're Chris Lemonis, Houston Harding's got to go into the rotation. And you're in the winner's bracket, so you can do that. And maybe Christian McLeod can get some momentum back out of the bullpen. But I think that's probably Christian McLeod's last start here.
I got to imagine Harding will start the next game, though. Mm-hmm. So I think McLeod will get another opportunity. But
I think they're going to have to use him again.
Yeah,
I just don't think they have another. What is the other option?
Yeah, I don't maybe you turn it into a bullpen game. I think that's the problem. But I think right now McLeod, it's the struggles are accumulating. They're very fortunate to win that game last night. You think about it, Virginia had chances to put that game away and didn't do it.
Rune's looking at McLeod. I mean, as a former coach, like if you're up there coaching your hitter, like what are you seeing from him that seems a little off to you?
Well, I think there's two things. For Christian McLeod, the curveball is a really important pitch. First of all, I think fatigue's a thing. This is his first time as a rotation guy. He made his 18th start last night. It's a lot of starts for a college pitcher, especially your first year through. The breaking ball is the pitch, and Virginia hammered the breaking ball. And so I don't know whether maybe there's a tell. Virginia's hitters attacked that breaking ball like they knew it was coming. And so I don't know if he's tipping it. I don't know if it's just maybe not as sharp as it once was.
His changeup has become the better pitch than the curveball for me this year, and that's something that did not used to be the case. But I think he's got more confidence with that pitch than he does with the curve, which I think is an issue.
Yep. Yeah. So I just you get to this point in the season, I just don't. You're playing with fire when you're putting a starter out there that continues to create leads. You're playing from behind. But hey, Mississippi State's got pitching depth. They've got, a bullpen day for them.
They used, 8 guys yesterday?
Yeah.
So.
And I love that Chris Lemonis got those guys, got their feet wet. Now those guys have pitched in Omaha. So, all right, so let's fast forward to today. We've got Vandy and Stanford. It's a very academic game. This is for smart people only.
Academic goal.
Yeah, that's right. What do we think, guys? Fitzy, why don't I start with you? What are you thinking for Vandy, Stanford?
This one feels like a coin toss to me. I will say that you talked about it before. If you're going to lose one of the first 2 games here, you lose that first one, then you can maybe build some momentum if you win the second game. Stanford is a team that's riding into this game, probably feeling okay about itself, having scored a bunch of runs against Arizona, and we're still kind of waiting for Vanderbilt's offense to show up. I mean, they haven't looked in sync really for a couple of weeks offensively, and you give credit to the pitchers they've faced. East Carolina's pitchers are good. Yeah. They held Vandy,
But I agree with you. I don't think Vandy's played well here. I think they won their first game and they were gutsy in winning that game, but I don't think we've seen a sharp Vandy so far in this tournament.
Whereas I thought Stanford was very sharp.
Very good.
What do they have left on the mound? They've used their 2 big bullets. Beck and Williams. Now you got to find some other guys to do it. But I think they could win maybe a higher scoring game. But, one thing to keep in mind is this park has not played nearly as offensive at night as it has during the day for whatever reason. Maybe it has, maybe it's something to do with the wind, but maybe not. Because even when the wind has been blowing out at night, it just, we haven't seen that kind of scoring here. So maybe a night game tonight, maybe that favors Vanderbilt.
Yeah, Stanford has been very good offensively here, and I think that's something that stands out to me, and it's hard to go against them. But one thing I look at when I look at Vanderbilt versus Stanford is, when I talk to coaches going in the Super Regional, the whole key was like, hey, if you can get Stanford to a third game, they can be had, but they're really difficult to beat with those first 2 starters. Well, what's the case in this game? You're past Alex Williams, you're past Brendan Beck. we'll see if they're a much different team, as this coach suggested. So I agree with you guys that Vanderbilt offensively just hasn't been in a groove. But I think they match up well with a number 3 starter for Stanford, and I think they'll have a big game.
Yeah, Stanford's very interesting. They're kind of that classic college team built to win a weekend series, but that's
Yes.
it. They won 9 Pac-12 series this year, did not sweep any of them. I think that's really telling about their pitching depth. But again, this to your point, Fitzy, the Stanford position player group is really on a nice roll right now. Very interesting. So let's talk about just general impressions of the bracket. Again, as I said in the beginning of this, I still feel a little bit on my heels. Like the result that came in last night, still not sure, that my brain has processed it. But Fitzy, go ahead and kick us off. Just some general impressions on where we stand as we sit here on Wednesday.
Well, it sure feels like, obviously it feels like NC State and Mississippi State are in their driver's seats.
Yep.
And considering, as we've talked about, NC State's lack of pitching depth, they had to stay in that winner's bracket, and they have so far. I wonder on that side if Vanderbilt wins today, if they can get past Stanford, Vanderbilt could still come back and win that bracket because you can bring back Rocker. I don't know if they would bring back Leiter on short rest on Saturday. I don't know how they would handle it, but they got a chance. I don't know that Stanford has the arms to do it, but maybe they can ride those bats. But I do feel like it really sets up nicely for NC State. I mean, I don't know what they'll do with their pitching. Will they go Willardson, Villeman in the next game and try to win it? So then you've got Johnston set up for the opener of the finals potentially. I think that's probably the approach for me, rather than bringing Johnston back on Friday. But we've seen coaches do it both ways. I mean, there's one school of thought that says if you bring back your ace on that Friday game, then maybe then you get a chance to use them 3 times in the series,
Wednesday,
which otherwise you can't.
Yep.
So I don't know how you like to play that, Ruse.
Yeah, I mean, that's another one of those. Really, I don't know that there's a right or wrong answer. You just kind of go with your gut and roll the dice because think about Saturday, Friday, Wednesday. That's still a lot of work, and I think there's no such thing. We talk a lot with pitchers about low stress innings. There's no such thing out here, right? The stage, the environment. It's you got your hands full. So yeah, I'm with you. NC State has been very impressive in this tournament.
Yeah, I'm gonna say the same thing pretty much. I mean, I just think when you look at NC State defensively, they've been excellent. Offensively, I mean, they've been clicking on all cylinders, and pitching wise, they've gotten it done. So they're now in a position where if let's say they start Willitson, they can go Willitson, Villeman, and go to Evan Justice too if they need to in that next game. Getting those few days off allows them to get him some extra rest that was much needed. So NC State's in a really good position right now, and I think for me, they've been by sizable nature like the most impressive team for me.
Yeah, and sometimes in these tournaments, it's not what you do, it's what happens when you're not playing.
Yeah.
And I think the ideal thing for NC State probably is Stanford takes down Vanderbilt.
I agree.
Yeah, and then, but again, if NC State just keeps playing the way they're playing, I think they're in good shape because they're playing elite defense, the offense is rolling, and they've got just enough pitching.
And Kendall said it. I mean, they have certainly been the most impressive team in every facet, really. I mean, they've kind of dominated the games that they've played, whereas Mississippi State almost, they were right on their heels. They were down 4-0 in the 8th inning, getting no hit. And hey, you give them credit. They found a way to win, but they've had to really work for it. NC State, it feels like it's just been in control, even though that one game was, it was not a blowout, the second game they played, but still, they felt like they were in control.
Yeah, I mean, you think about Mississippi State, they've won 2 very unusual games. They strike out 21 guys to win a game that they probably needed all 21 punch-outs to win that game because the offense was not, Ty Madden was just excellent. And then, that game last night, I still am not sure what I saw. It was just so amazing that Virginia dominated that game for so long and lost. Think about this, guys. What if we get a Mississippi State, NC State CWS finals? 2 teams that have not won a national championship.
Yeah.
I mean, Mississippi State, that fan base, like this place will be maroon. No offense to the NC State fan base, but they will paint TD Ameritrade Park maroon.
It's kind of interesting. Somebody asked me this morning, like, hey, how would you rate it on like the importance scale if Mississippi State won the national championship for like the state of Mississippi and Starkville? I gave it like a 10.5.
Yeah.
Like it would be that big of a deal. Mississippi State has never won a major national championship in college athletics, so this would be huge, and Chris Lamonis would have a little king crown on his head.
Yeah. All right. Go ahead, Fitzy.
Yeah, I was just going to transition to that side of the bracket. So, I mean, do we think, obviously, Mississippi State, you're in pretty good shape. right? You've got I don't know if they bring back Bednar on Friday or what they do. Maybe go with Harding, like you said. Maybe that's the play. But Texas does feel like they've got the pitching to come back here. Now Virginia, I'm with you. I'm worried now. I thought the strength of Virginia's pitching staff was the bullpen, and now I'm worried about the bullpen. And I didn't even think Kyle Witten looked that sharp yesterday. Shaw, clearly, you wonder how much he's got left in the tank. And starting pitching wise, I don't know. Maybe they still have Matt Wyatt. Maybe you roll him back in the starting role. I don't know what they do, but it feels like it sets up really well for Texas with Pete Hansen going in the next game.
Yeah, so let's say they can get a win with Pete Hansen. They come back with Kubicek more than likely against Houston Harding. And that kind of sets the stage for a potential, rematch of Will Bednar against Ty Madden.
Yeah, and I don't know if you guys would agree with this, but of the 4 teams that are going to come through the losers bracket, Texas does feel the most viable.
Absolutely.
They feel they were very impressive against Tennessee. They do have pitching depth. They have a style of play that lends itself to, again, like you guys said, their defense was eye-popping.
Yeah, if you play defense here at a high level, you got a really good chance to win every game you play. We've seen it with NC State, and I think we could see it with Texas too.
And they're hitting now. They were flat maybe a little bit the first game out here, but I thought the offense looked good against Tennessee. So they're starting to feel like a team that is playing well in all facets, kind of like NC State.
Yep. It's so interesting too. I feel like this is halftime of the College World Series.
Yes.
It's like you get through those first 4 days. There's so much excitement, and now you start to get some clarity. And then it's catch your second wind, and here we go. So I'm hoping to catch my second wind. This has been it's been a blast.
You start to feel it at this point a little bit. You're kind of like you're getting out of bed a little slower.
Yep.
And we're just covering it. I can't imagine how players feel. So
the coaches. It's just again, I've said this to a lot of people last night. The Virginia coaching staff that we all have great respect for. They've won a national title. There's no sleep that was had last night.
No.
That's a loss that keeps you up for a week.
It's a guillotine loss.
Oh my gosh!
I mean, it's just brutal. It's just brutal to be up in that situation and find a way to lose. But who do you like today, Runes?
I think Stanford. Yeah, I think Stanford's position player group really has my attention.
Yes.
And I love the vibe from David Esker right now.
Absolutely.
He gave that 2x4 metaphor, and there's. Hey, the data point is the data point for Vandy. They were 4-5 in game 3s. For whatever reason, as talented as that pitching staff is, a third guy it never emerged. And so it's not for lack of talent. These are probably kids that will be really good in future years, but it just hasn't clicked in this year.
It does feel like their bullpen, though. You can bring back Maldonado. You can bring back the M&M boys, Murphy, McIlvain, all those guys who didn't pitch when Jack Leiter went the distance. They're all fresh. So whether they go with Riley or Little today, and I haven't seen that, they can patch it together with that bullpen. But I still think I'm with you. I love what I've seen from that Stanford position player group and the vibe. Absolutely agree on Coach Esker and the way he's kind of set the tone for this team. Love his presence.
Yes.
I saw it, we talked about this, but we saw it in Lubbock too, right? Just so laid back, even keeled. I think that really is a very effective mindset out here, and it's funny we say that. Tim Corbin is kind of the opposite mindset. He's as tightly wound, he's a very intense guy, but he's won 2 national titles. He's clearly that can work here also. It's just a kind of an interesting contrast in styles.
Yeah, I think Corbs tends to really. He does a nice. It's easy to say this, right? Because Vandy has played very well in Omaha. But I do feel like Corbs does an excellent job of getting out of the way when they get to Omaha.
That's
and
very
just,
true.
The hay is in the barn, if you will. And so I'll tell you what's interesting to me, guys, is I feel like Stanford and Vandy, who are very similar programs, high academic schools, power conferences, I just feel like they haven't been great at the same time in college baseball.
Ooh.
But I feel like that day is upon us. Like Stanford clearly trending up under David Esker. Vandy is, this is a power brand in college baseball. I feel like that's the road Stanford's going down. They're kind of on their return to that, and this is kind of a fascinating preview to me for that.
Yeah.
So
I guess I'll go with Vandy. I'll be the one guy that picks the SEC school. I just think when you look at Vandy, I actually think they set up pretty well pitching wise. Like you mentioned, they can throw 4 or 5, 6 guys if need be. A lot like Mississippi State last night. I think offensively, they'll get in a little bit of a groove against the number 3 starter for Stanford, whether it's Gretsch or whoever. I think Vandy's going to win, but it's hard for me to go against Stanford. I mean, I love the way they've played in this tournament. They've played loose. And it's kind of interesting because we talk so much about young players, being like struck by this experience and like getting out of their element. But like their young players have been loose, but yet dialed in and kind of a professional approach.
And they also have a lot more experience in their
Yeah.
lineup than Vanderbilt does. Let's not forget, this is a young Vanderbilt team. They may be the reigning national champs, but it's really just Kumar Rocker, who played out here 2 years ago, unless I'm forgetting somebody, Bruce.
Yeah, no, Kumar was really the guy. Yeah, Keegan really was a role player, bench player. It's really the Vanderbilt brand that is the defending national champion, not really this roster per se.
Yeah.
So, all right, so we have single game days the next 2 days. So if you're out here, you come over here to the Village, you can get to the zoo. You've got options. You can get to the restaurants, you can get to the Drover for breakfast, for lunch, do what you got to do. And we're looking forward to that. So that's it for Wednesday here at the College World Series. Again, thanks to our friends at Wilson, and we will catch you guys tomorrow.